Under heavy fire. Under heavy fire. Permission to proceed. Operation When Eagles Down. Repeat. Operation When Eagles Down.
In the spring of 1983, Iron Maiden introduced a new drummer to their growing audience. Nico McBrain made his debut on their brand new and aptly named album, Peace of Mind, and his impact was heard from the moment listeners were dropping the needle on that album. And I really do envy anybody who is lured towards this album by the artwork of Derek Riggs, bringing it home and being absolutely blown away by the massive introduction to the album, Where Eagles Dare, a song that's lyrics are pretty modest in length and only tell a very small portion of a much more extensive tale. Where Eagles Dare is a book and screenplay written by Alistair MacLean, a Scottish author who in his lifetime wrote adventure stories, thrillers, and screenplays. He was one of the most popular action authors of his time, and Where Eagles Dare was one of, if not his most popular work, both the film and the novel of the same name. MacLean served in World War II and with the Royal Navy from the years 1941 to 1946, which certainly inspired these written works. I personally had never seen the film or read the book, so I went down to the library, which thankfully had the film available, and I rented it to watch with James. Seems a little bit silly to do this for a movie that is almost 60 years old, but I am putting a spoiler warning here because I'm basically going to be talking about the entire plot of the movie, so if you are a Maiden fan like me and hadn't seen it yet, and you want to, then just skip this video for now and come back to it. Where Eagles Dare is a work of fiction set in World War II era Bavaria. A group of Allied agents are sent to Schloss Adler, a German castle fortress situated precariously on a mountaintop, which is only accessible via cable car. The mission of these agents is to rescue General George Carnaby, who's being held at Schloss Adler after his plane was shot down in Nazi territory. The team's mission is to rescue him before he can divulge information about Operation Overlord. Major Jonathan Smith, played by Richard Burton, heads this team of agents, and Clint Eastwood plays one of the main characters, an American named Lieutenant Morris Schaefer, who is part of the team and continually questions why he was assigned to an all-British operation. The Iron Maiden song begins in the same way as the movie. In the winter of 1944, a plane carrying the 7 agents, including Smith and Schaefer, makes its way through the Bavarian Alps, and the men descend into the wilderness below from their plane. One of the men, Herod, was unaccounted for upon landing and was soon found dead, having broken his neck. Upon closer inspection by Smith, Herod had a trauma to his neck, with nothing around that could have caused his injury other than an attack by another person. It's at this point that he knows that somebody on his team is a suspect, but he keeps quiet as to not disrupt the mission. Later this evening, he divulges this information to Mary, his love interest, who arrived from the plane separately and secretly. The next day, the team finds Schloss Adler, and they sneak into the village below, disguising themselves as German officers. They enter an inn, attempting to eavesdrop for information on the captured general. Smith makes a coded exchange with the barmaid, who's also a British agent, and privately meets with her and Mary. Smith explains they need to get into the fortress and reveals they don't actually have the general held prisoner there, but an impersonator who has none of the information. Mary's confused as to why they would go through all that effort to rescue an impersonator, but with no time to explain, Smith gives her forged paperwork to get into the fortress as a servant. Following this exchange, Smith finds another of his men murdered just outside this building. Once back inside, Schaefer demands to know the truth about this mission, but is interrupted when the SS enter the inn, and Smith and Schaefer give themselves up as the supposed officers they were looking for. The remaining 3 men are taken for questioning. All the while, Mary infiltrates Schloss Adler. Smith and Schaefer manage to kill the German officers, driving them away from this encounter, and eventually find themselves back in the village again. They see their fellow agents being led to the cable car to be taken to the fortress and sneak on top of it. Once they arrive, Mary helps Smith and Schaefer into the fortress via rope, and the 2 men make their way to the Great Hall, where the Germans are talking to Carnaby. The impersonator won't hand over any information, and the Germans prepare to use a truth serum on him. The 3 captured members of the rescue team are also brought in, and it's revealed that they too are double agents, posing as British but working for the Germans. Smith enters and confronts the men as they are about to inject the impersonator, and he claims that these 3 double agents are still lying. Smith reveals that he is working for the SS military intelligence and tells Schaefer, who entered with him, guns drawn, to drop his weapon. Smith proves his loyalty to the Germans, who didn't trust his initial claims, and to prove they are all on the same side, the three traitors write down all the names they have of the Nazi agents working in England. Smith gathers up their lists, and asks the German Colonel Kramer to confirm it. While he's busy comparing the names, Smith signals Schaefer to get ready to grab his gun. Smith now gives Colonel Kramer his own list of names, but the book is blank. Smith truly is a British agent, and tricked them into revealing the Nazi spy network in England. They kill the Germans, take the traitors as prisoners, and make their escape. One traitor is shot by the Nazis, and the other two perish after attempting escape on the cable car, thwarted after a struggle with Smith. The others manage to escape from a cable car, rigging it with dynamite to detonate after they've dropped to the river below. They all hijack a bus and drive off while being pursued by the Germans. They trigger dynamite they left along the road earlier, blocking the path of their enemies. After much gunfire and many, many explosions, they were all rescued via plane and met with the man who sent them on this mission, Colonel Turner, who was the second in command for British intelligence. The colonel reviews the list that Smith has given him in disbelief, but Smith tells him that there's one name missing from the traitors list that was on Colonel Kramer's list. The top German agent in England. The name on the list was Colonel Turner. He, of course, tried to talk his way out of it, but when that didn't work out, he tried to shoot Smith, but he failed at that as the pin was removed before the mission. Not wanting to face the fate that would meet him for betraying England, Turner jumps to his death. The rest return to England having completed their mission. I'm not usually too interested in war-themed movies myself, but I was actually pretty entertained with this one, especially their fantastic practical effects. My favorite use being the scene where the car they were fighting in after exiting the inn crashed and threw a very obvious dummy from the windshield. And, of course, the presence of 100 explosions helped. Holy hell, did they love their explosions. So that's it. The shortened version, really, but not as short as Maiden managed to make it. The Maiden abridged story of Where Eagles Dare basically goes, the men have a mission, in a plane flying through the Bavarian Alps. They jump from plane, men get on a cable car, hope they aren't too late, men cause a ruckus and the mission is complete. And then we all, of course, cheer because it is rock and roll. And I hope you guys know that was ironic, Jesus Christ. I think Steve did a really great job capturing the energy and vibe of the movie in this song. A couple weeks ago, I was actually reading some archives from the old fan club website, and as I browsed through the 1999 to 2000 era of the page, I came across an interview with Steve where the interviewer asked him if he was a really big film buff because he seems to write a lot of songs about movies, and in classic Steve fashion, he just gave a, no, not really. Truly just some guy. I had fun learning about this story more in depth while doing research for this video. And I love seeing bits where Maiden took inspiration for their live shows, specifically on Legacy of the Beast, where Bruce had his big white jacket on, and the backdrop they had made for that song really looked like it was pulled straight from the movie. I really hope you guys enjoyed this installment. So, as always, thank you to our Patreon members for their support. They're actually the ones who voted on this video. I ran a little poll, probably a couple months ago now, asking what they would like the next song for the story behind the song videos to be, and this is what they chose. Thank you to everybody for watching, supporting, and leaving kind comments all the time, and I'll see you next time.